E aí pessoal, bem-vindos ao canal Amigo Gringo. No domingo saiu uma entrevista extraordinária na TV americana com o ex-assessor do Donald Trump, o John Bolton, em que o Bolton conta que Trump é ingênuo, é ignorante, é irracional e uma vez perguntou se a Finlândia fazia parte da Rússia. Agora eu sei, americano é péssimo de geografia, mas em teoria o presidente poderia ser um pouco melhor informado. Olha, às vezes eu falo mal no canal do Trump e as pessoas sempre me chamam de comunista, ou socialista, ou esquerdopata, ou sei lá. Mas o Bolton, quando fala mal do Trump, não é comunista, não é de esquerda, não é nem de centro e nem de direita moderada. Ele é odiado pelos democratas e, no mínimo, suspeito para republicanos do centro por falar muito do uso extenso da força militar americana para resolver os problemas do mundo. Bom, a entrevista foi concedida para a ABC, a rede postou grande parte no YouTube, mas sem legendas. Então, eu decidi pedir ao espetacular tradutor do canal Amigo Gringo, o Lucas Irata, que traduzisse para vocês. E foi um trabalho muito grande, são 25 minutos de entrevista. Quem precisa de um tradutor de inglês para o português, entre em contato com ele. Olha, eu não vou aparecer mais aqui neste vídeo. Volto amanhã, quarta-feira, com um vídeo bem divertido dos meus amigos que não falam português, me dando parabéns em português. É muito engraçado. Eu não estou monetizando este vídeo, claro, porque não é meu, mas achei importante vocês verem e entenderem. Olha, só peço um favor. Bom, 2 favores, ok? Primeiro, que vocês falem o que acham nos comentários e que compartilhem este vídeo com seus amigos que gostam da política.
If the book gets out, he's broken the law, and I would think that he would have criminal problems.
This is the book that President Trump does not want the American people to read.
And maybe he's not telling the truth. He's been known not to tell the truth a lot.
John Bolton is the highest-ranking official to write an insider account of his experience inside Trump's White House. Why is this the book President Trump doesn't want anyone to read?
Because this is a book of facts.
So why wouldn't President Trump want to know about those facts?
Because I think it shows a pattern quite contrary to the image he would like to convey of a decisive president who knows something about what he's doing.
Bolton has been defined by fierce ideology. He was once ambassador to the United Nations and served 3 previous Republican presidents.
He is an aggressive promoter of a hawkish, strong projection of American power around the world.
Many of us thought that Bolton going in with that portfolio, there could be some conflict.
On April 9th, 2018, Bolton started his job as Trump's 3rd national security advisor in less than 15 months.
Breaking right now, John Bolton is in. Good news as national security advisor.
John Bolton's the right guy at the right time.
I think he's going to be a fantastic representative of our team. He's highly respected by everybody in this room. You are going to do a fantastic job, and I appreciate you joining.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
But John Bolton is about to join a revolving door of advisors. Let's go back. So you walk into the White House. You'd worked for 3 other presidents, both Bushes and Reagan. What was immediately different about the Trump White House?
This was not like a White House I had ever seen before. It was not functioning in the same way as any of the 3 previous presidents I had worked for.
From his first day in office, Trump was a president unlike any other.
We are not going to let the fake news tell us what to do.
Unpredictable and often incendiary.
If you're not happy here, then you can leave. That's what I said in a tweet, which I guess some people think is controversial. A lot of people love it, by the way.
Donald Trump is a reality TV star turned President of the United States of America. He likes the TV moments. He also thrives on chaos. Is that your Bible?
It's a Bible.
Even the daily schedule at the White House was unorthodox.
What most people found striking was that Trump's official day didn't start until almost lunchtime. Trump was not loafing during the morning. He talked to all manner of people.
Who were those outsiders he was listening to?
I don't really know. I think they were friends. Sometimes he would say, a very wise person told me X, or somebody who really knows this stuff told me Y.
What were his briefings like? Was he reading his briefings?
Well, my experience was he very rarely read much. The intelligence briefings took place perhaps once or twice a week.
Is that unusual?
It's very unusual. They should take place every day. The president should read extensively the material he's given. It's not clear to me that he read much of anything. There was just an unwillingness on the part of the president, I think, to do systematic learning so that he could make the most informed decisions.
I'm a very stable genius.
The president has referred to himself as a stable genius. Is that what you saw?
Really? How can anybody call himself a stable genius? He did say it a couple times when I was in his presence, and I just didn't react to it.
You wrote the president was not just uninformed, but stunningly uninformed. Can you give us some examples?
Well, there were things that we went over again and again and again that just didn't seem to sink in, like why was the Korean Peninsula partitioned in 1945 at the end of World War II, and what did that lead to, and how did we get to that point?
You say in the book that Trump asked General John Kelly if Finland was part of Russia?
He said those things, absolutely. And when you're dealing with somebody who asks questions like that, it's very hard to know how to proceed.
Would you say anything to him about this?
Well, you don't necessarily say to any president, you know, Mr. President, you really got to buckle down here and do your lessons. So, no, I didn't do it that way. I certainly tried on a couple of occasions with, I think, success from time to time.
From the beginning, the Trump White House was a family affair. Both his son-in-law, Jared, and his daughter, Ivanka, hold key positions as his advisors.
They even have a disparaging nickname. They call them Javanka because they're sort of seen as one and the same.
Somebody once said to me, in the Trump White House, there's family and everyone else is the help.
Who held the most power in the White House?
It varied from time to time, but I think the sustained answer to that question over time is Jared Kushner.
Thank you, Jared. My star.
He is so great. If you can't produce peace in the Middle East, nobody can.
Jared Kushner deals with everything. Think about it. When it comes to Middle East peace, Jared, you deal with that. When it comes to dealing with China, Jared, you take the lead on that. When it came to the coronavirus pandemic, suddenly there he was again.
Jared Kushner has a very broad portfolio. Is he the most qualified person for those jobs?
I don't really want to get into the family aspect of this. The focus ought to be on the president.
But if Jared Kushner is the second most powerful person in that White House, why can't you answer that question?
Well, I think a question I would put in turn to conservative Republicans is, how do you feel about that?
While reluctant to get personal about the Trump family in our interview, Bolton did share a story about the president and his daughter after news broke of Ivanka's private email account.
Ivanka Trump under fire, accused of doing exactly what her own father campaigned against, using a private email account to conduct government business.
You share one story of how policy was essentially shaped to protect the Trump family interest after U.S. intelligence reportedly determined the Saudi crown prince played a role in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Trump issued a statement, you say, to divert attention from Ivanka, who was getting press for her emails, her private email account.
Well, the president said that. Now, in fact, he also strongly believed in the statement that he made about U.S. policy vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia, despite the killing of Khashoggi, because of the arms sales relationship and other things. But it was very much on his mind that day that his daughter was taking some heavy hits in the press and absolutely guaranteed this diverted everyone's attention.
And he said that?
Yes.
But what's garnered a lot of attention is Bolton's assertion that he saw a disturbing pattern behind the president's decision-making process. You say that you were astonished by what you saw. A president for whom getting reelected was the only thing that mattered, even if it meant endangering or weakening the nation?
Well, I think he was so focused on the reelection that longer-term considerations fell by the wayside. There was considerable emphasis on the photo opportunity and the press reaction to it, and little or no focus on what such meetings did for the bargaining position of the United States.
Are you saying that all decisions the president made were driven by re-election?
Thank you very much, El Paso. Thank you very much.
I didn't see anything where that wasn't the major factor. So a lot of people have complained that he has a short attention span and he doesn't focus. I want to say when it comes to re-election, his attention span was infinite. It's just too bad there wasn't more of that when it came to national security.
You described the president as erratic, foolish, behaved irrationally, bizarrely. You can't leave him alone for a minute. He saw conspiracies behind rocks. He couldn't tell the difference between his personal interests and the country's interests.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's re-election.
North Korea, the most secretive nation on the planet, fueled by power, loyalty, and greed. From its million-man military to its eerie forced conformity, a nation living in fear.
The best way to understand North Korea is that it's a 25 million person prison camp, and it's ruled by the world's only hereditary communist dictatorship.
Kim Jong-un, known as supreme leader to his people, an international outlaw to much of the world.
North Korea is a poor country. People starve there, and yet for decades this regime has spent untold amounts of money developing this nuclear and ballistic missile program. This is the heart of their power.
You have always been a hardliner on North Korea, and yet there you were with a president who wanted to meet with Kim Jong-un. What concerns did you have about that?
Well, I was very concerned that he would give away things that he didn't need to give away. To be clear, I don't think North Korea is ever going to voluntarily give up its nuclear weapons program.
For decades, North Korea has been building up its nuclear arsenal.
North Korea is a situation that should have been handled 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, but I'll fix the mess.
So when Kim launched a long-range missile that could potentially reach the United States with a nuclear weapon, Trump went ballistic.
We begin with North Korea. President Trump warning the regime today against making any more threats toward the U.S.
North Korea better get their act together, or they're going to be in trouble like few nations ever have been in trouble.
The president had a nickname for the dictator.
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
Little Rocket Man.
And a warning.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Kim Jong-un is saying equally incendiary things out of North Korea, and he's testing increasingly sophisticated rockets capable of delivering nuclear weapons.
He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
It was a very dangerous, very unsettled time.
I was really being tough, and so was he. And we were going back and forth, and then we fell in love, okay?
Kim sent the president an oversized love letter.
He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters.
It was the beginning of the bromance. Do you think he really believes that Kim Jong-un loves him?
I don't know any other explanation. I think Kim Jong-un gets a huge laugh out of this. I mean, these letters are written by some functionary in the North Korean Workers' Party agitprop office. And yet the president has looked at them as evidence of this deep friendship. Even if it were a deep personal relationship, it doesn't change the fact Kim Jong-un is never going to give up his nuclear weapons program. But nobody should misunderstand that a personal relationship is somehow equivalent to better relations between the two nations.
We make a deal. I think Kim Jong-un is going to be very, very happy. I really believe he's going to be very happy.
When the two leaders met for the first time in Singapore for their historic summit, it was high theater.
Donald Trump wanted to put on the foreign policy show of a lifetime. He saw the American flags flying next to the North Korean flags, Kim Jong-un coming from one side of the stage, Donald Trump coming from the other, smiling like they had been old friends.
Why is this diplomatic initiative so important to President Trump?
When we were in Singapore, one of the things he said over and over again was to ask how many press people were going to be present for his final press conference. And I think the final number, it was a very large number, as it should have been, 400, 500. By the time we left Singapore, he was at 2,000. That's what he was focused on, that he had had this enormous photo opportunity. First time an American president has met with the leader of North Korea.
John Bolton saw the bargaining firsthand, behind closed doors. In this photo, see him in the lower right corner. He is there in the room where it happened. Take us inside that room. The press mob, as you call them, comes in. As soon as they leave, you say the flattery began with Kim Jong-un.
Well, every president has a style, but the idea that just this oleaginous layer of compliments to this brutal dictator would convince him that you could make a deal with Donald Trump, I thought was both strikingly naive and dangerous. He told Kim Jong-un we would give up what he called the war games on the Korean Peninsula. The president didn't seem to understand that the war games, as he called them, were critical to American and South Korean ability to be ready to withstand pressure from North Korea and to pull down these engagements, these exercises, because they displeased Kim Jong-un, I just thought was an act of folly.
Just a month before that summit, you praised the president's skill, saying he would size Kim up and that he has got an outstanding ability to do that. Did you believe that when you said it?
Not particularly, but you know, one of the functions of an administration official is to defend the administration.
The summit was over, but the bromance was in full bloom. Trump's nickname for Kim Jong-un was Rocket Man.
Well, he gave him an Elton John CD. He tried to explain that calling him Rocket Man was actually a compliment. I don't think we've heard from Kim Jong-un what he thought of Elton John's song, but that'll be an interesting tidbit in history. But this is the kind of focus that leads you to wonder whether there's an ability to discern what's cosmetic here from what's truly serious.
And you think what he did there is dangerous?
I think when you're dealing with the power of nuclear weapons in the hands of an irrational regime, not taking that as seriously as he should have was a big mistake. Donald Trump got a lot. The U.S. itself got nothing from that. The United States gave much more legitimacy to this dictator and didn't accomplish anything toward any meaningful discussion on the elimination of their nuclear weapons program.
Did you tell him at any time about the things you're now telling the world?
Well, I certainly tried to. I said at one point, Mr. President, he's the dictator of a rat little country that doesn't deserve a meeting with you. The president's response to that was, you know, you have a lot of hostility. Of course, I have more hostility, but you have a lot of hostility.
They would meet twice more, Trump walking away from a summit in Hanoi as Kim's demands hardened.
Sometimes you have to walk, and this was just one of those times.
Only to show up months later at the DMZ, Trump becoming the first American president to step into North Korea.
Would you like me to step across? I'd be very proud to do that. Okay.
But Trump's high-stakes gamble has gotten him nowhere with denuclearization, the man who brought us the art of the deal, failing to secure one. As we sit here today, would you say the threat from North Korea is greater today than when President Trump took office?
The threat from North Korea today is absolutely greater because while all these photo opportunities were taking place, there's absolutely no doubt that North Korea's work on both its nuclear and ballistic missile programs continued.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Trump's ability to make a deal in North Korea?
Well, I think it turned out clearly at this point to be 0. It's not that hard to make a deal if you're prepared to give away enough. And if you don't fully appreciate what it is you're giving away or the nature of the adversary negotiating on the other side of the table, you can make some pretty serious mistakes. Condi Rice, George W. Bush's national security advisor and Secretary of State, said to me, Putin only knows two ways to deal with people, to humiliate them or dominate them, and you can't let him get away with it.
How would you describe Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin?
I think Putin is smart, tough. I think he sees that he's not faced with a serious adversary here. I think Putin thinks he can play him like a fiddle. I don't think he's worried about Donald Trump.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Moscow.
In the years before he was president, Donald Trump brought his Miss Universe pageant to Russia.
And of course, the big man on campus, Donald Trump.
Hoping that President Putin would attend. Through the years, his interest in Russia and Putin continued up to the 2016 election.
I mean, he might be bad, he might be good, but he's a strong leader.
But it was this comment on the campaign trail that raised questions.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
He essentially called on Russia to hack into Hillary Clinton's emails.
By the way, if they hacked, they probably have her 33,000 emails. I hope they do.
Since he took office, Trump and Putin have shared a complicated relationship.
Putin struck me as totally in control, calm, self-confident, totally knowledgeable on Moscow's national security priorities.
You say that President Putin plays Donald Trump like a fiddle. How does he do it?
He knows the people he's talking to, and I think he looks at somebody like Donald Trump and says to himself, as an old KGB officer, how am I going to get him to the place I want him to be? And I can just see the smirk when he knows he's got him following his line.
Well, actually, Putin did call me a genius, and he said I'm the future of the Republican Party. So he's off to a good start.
You wrote that on a few occasions, President Trump was eager or even desperate, as you describe it, to meet with Vladimir Putin.
Well, I think there was the same fascination with speaking with a leader like Putin that we saw with respect to Kim Jong-un. The president himself used to comment on it, how strange it was that in one trip he took to a NATO summit, that he thought the easiest, most pleasant one might be with Vladimir Putin.
July 2018, and the two men were about to meet at a high-profile summit in Finland.
Great to be with you. So here you have the president going to meet with Vladimir Putin as the world has seen the evidence that people that work in Vladimir Putin's government were directly involved in the hack of the Democratic Party emails during the 2016 campaign. So it's an incredible cloud over this meeting of these two men.
Donald Trump, as we say, sees himself as a deal maker. What happened to the deal maker in those situations?
Well, the president may well be a superb deal maker when it comes to Manhattan real estate. But when you're dealing with somebody like Putin, who has made his life understanding Russia's strategic position in the world, against Donald Trump, who doesn't enjoy reading about these issues or learning about them, it's a very difficult position for America to be in.
I love to negotiate things. I do it really well and all that stuff.
Trump was not following any international grand strategy. His thinking was like an archipelago of dots, leaving the rest of us to discern or create policy.
I would assume that Donald Trump would come back and say, look, we put very serious sanctions on Russia, and that he has been good with Donald Trump, and you need to have good relationships.
Certainly personal relationships between leaders are important, but they do not dominate what the national interests are. And I think Putin has a very acute knowledge of what Russia's national interests are and how he wants to accomplish them.
You were worried about leaving him alone in a room with Vladimir Putin. Why?
Because I didn't know what he would say.
The president has said this will put him in a bad position with world leaders. If you were president, you certainly wouldn't want your former national security advisor to be saying that the Russian president could play you like a fiddle. Why does that not matter as he goes forward?
Well, it's not telling Vladimir Putin anything that he doesn't already know. and it's telling the American people something they may not be aware of.
At the end of the summit, Trump and Putin held a press conference that would make headlines around the world.
President Trump and Vladimir Putin have just concluded their one-on-one meeting.
During today's meeting, I addressed directly with President Putin the issue of Russian interference in our elections. I felt this was a message best delivered in person.
You said you were frozen in your seat watching that.
I thought I wouldn't get up. I didn't know what to do.
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
We had the famous press conference, and the equivalency that the president ascribed, he says because he was misunderstood, to what our intelligence was saying about Russian interference in American elections and Vladimir Putin's denial. It was a stunning moment.
So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
History was made. The reverberations were immediate. The president clearly appearing to choose Putin.
You think President Trump did not like to talk about election interference?
Oh, I definitely think he did not like talking about election interference because he made what I viewed as the mistake of believing that if he accepted that the Russians had intervened in the 2016 election, that it legitimized the narrative that they had intervened to help him hurt Hillary Clinton and that he would not have won without the Russian interference. I think Vladimir Putin and their strategy rest on the real perception that American politics today is very fraught, very tense, very difficult. Everything they can do to stir mistrust, to undercut the legitimacy of our democratic institutions, helps to paralyze America. And a weaker, more paralyzed, more divided America is in Russia's interest. They're having great success at it. I think many of these foreign leaders mastered the art of ringing his bells.
You say the term, he was marked by some of those leaders.
I think they knew exactly what they were looking at, and they pursue their objectives. And this is, in my view, the only way you can pursue a successful policy is persistently, with the eye on your ultimate objective, and taking Trump apart piece by piece by piece, which I'm afraid too often was the case.